Good morning, everybody. This is your erstwhile poet and poetry reader, Jim Ransom, with another YouTube edition of Morning Jim. I'm sitting here in my living room toward the end of a wild election year with October surprises coming almost daily. I'm not sure how many more I can handle. So we're going to use this time to read poetry totally unrelated to politics. Can you imagine that? Hooray, right? I'm going to read 3 poems today by different poets. The first one is by one of my favorites who is a professor of English here at Washburn University. His name is Eric McHenry, and he has written a book called Odd Evening. And the poem I want to read from his book is sort of appropriate for October and maybe even Halloween. It's called Unfinished Attic. Good for you if you still want to know what words your mouth will make when you implore God or a shoeless murderer to show himself or mercy. I don't anymore. Scanning a row of plastic tubs, I swore I saw a human foot, and when one foot moved and sent motion through the other 4, I started saying, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa." I didn't drop what I was holding, though. A box of candle stubs I'd come to store with all the other gods we lived below. Paint cans with painted lips, spray cans of snow, gilt paper clinging to its cardboard core. Mirrors. The foot was mine. And whoa, whoa, whoa. I think that's a great little poem. And by the way, it's a sonnet, isn't it? 14 lines with rhymes. And remember, rhyming in poetry is wonderful. It hasn't stopped happening. And it's nice if it's a little bit underplayed. In other words, you don't always know that there is a rhyme going on. But think about this. Good for you if you still want to know what words your mouth will make when you implore God or a shoeless murderer to show himself or mercy. I don't anymore. So you've got know and show and implore and anymore, but you don't notice that. I mean, it doesn't distract from the message of the poem. So there you are, Odd Evening by Eric McHenry. I'm sure it's available at libraries and maybe even still for sale. You might check online. I didn't check, so I can't answer that. Fright and humor all wound up in a sonnet. You may know a lot of sonnets because Shakespeare, you might say, popularized that form. But it's all here in this very well done little poem. Okay, the next poem is another one by a favorite of mine, the late John Crowe Ransom, a renowned poet and critic in his time. He was born in the 19th century and was writing poetry in the 20s and 30s, and he lived until 1974 and passed away at age 89. I'm not related to him, as I've said before, and my admiration has nothing to do with his name or mine. It's just a fact of fate. Here's one of his 3 or 4 best poems, by my estimation, and it's called Janet Waking. This book of his poetry was purchased for me by my late wife, Marcia, on a trip that we took to Boston for a medical meeting way back in 1978. The poem is called Janet Waking. Beautifully Janet slept till it was deeply morning. She woke then and thought about her dainty feathered hen, to see how it had kept. One kiss she gave to her mother, only a small one gave she to her daddy, who would have kissed each curl of his shining baby. No kiss at all for her brother. Old Chucky, she cried, running across the world upon the grass to Chucky's house and listening. But alas, her Chucky had died. It was a transmogrifying bee came droning down on Chucky's old bald head and sat and put the poison. It scarcely bled, but how exceedingly and purply did the knot swell with the venom and communicate its rigor. Now the poor comb stood up straight, but Chucky did not. So there was Janet kneeling on the wet grass, crying her brown hen, translated far beyond the daughters of men, to rise and walk upon it. And weeping fast as she had breath, Janet implored us, wake her from her sleep, and would not be instructed in how deep was the forgetful kingdom of death. Ransom wrote a lot about death and dying because the irony of it all fascinated him. In this poem, a child has a sudden shock when her favorite pet is stung to death. Her parents, briefly introduced early in the poem, find it their job, suddenly and unexpectedly in the bright morning, to try to console and explain this to her. The irony is that she would not be instructed in the matter of death. But it is implied that this will come with time, as it does to all. Finally, I'm going to read a poem of my own. It will be our humor for today, and it is very contemporary, and also has its own kind of irony. It is not in a book. It's hot off the computer printer, and here it is. It's called Virus Fighters. Washington bureaucrats in charge of our health didn't think the Chinese virus was anything to worry about until it was, until it settled like a pall on New York City, until it ravaged a nursing home in Seattle, until it swept through northern Italy like pillaging Goths. Advice trickled out of the agencies and bureaus and administrations, such as don't bother with masks, and then everyone needs a mask. And governors closed down small businesses, but left the big ones alone. Don't shake hands, bump elbows instead. Don't fly. Don't take the subway. Wash your hands for 23 seconds. Always stand 6 feet apart. Suddenly, forehead thermometers were all the rage. And you really cared if you checked the oxygen pressure in a finger. Then we all had to stay home. Except we didn't. The people always know what to do. We went to the super and bought all the toilet paper we could find. That's kind of the story about this year, isn't it? We had a nice enough spring, but by the time it had really got off to a good start, we were scared to death. Or at least many of us were, and I don't blame you if you were one of those. When you get to be my age, you know that death, who cannot be forsworn or kept away for long, is going to eventually find you. So, I mean, it is what it is. And so I did fly, and I have enjoyed life. And I have gone to small stores that were open whenever I could find one. But that's just me. Morning, Jim. There is ironic humor in current events, as in nearly all aspects of our life. Politics is so full of so much craziness. Even a scary pandemic needs to be seen as much as it can be by the eyes of humor. Okay, that's it for this week. I have a beautiful latte in a cup that I bought on a visit to Colombia about 3 years ago. And I'm talking about the country of Colombia, in a little village outside of Medellin. I'm going to enjoy this coffee, and I hope you enjoyed the poems this morning. I'll be looking for you on Morning Jim next week, when I'll be reading more poetry and trying to make it understandable. Cheers and blessings to all of you. Bye now.